Hello, you fabulous interior design professional. Welcome to Business of Design. Can you believe it? Episode 405. And this one is all about the toilet. Well, not exactly, but sort of. We're going to meet a lovely interior design professional who works in the healthcare sector, designing spaces for patients. You're in a waiting room, you're in a diagnostic facility, you're getting treatment for something. And it's her job and the job of many wonderful professionals to create an experience that somehow supports the patient through that process, through that very, very difficult process. And the story gets personal for her. We're going to be speaking with Sara Robinson, and Sara is herself a breast cancer diagnosee, I guess you would say. She is from the firm McMillan Pasden Smith, and you can find her on Instagram at MPS Architecture, and this information will be in the show notes as well. But Sara talks about her experience designing these spaces and thinking about mundane areas like the toilet and how much is at stake when someone goes into that space in this high stress arena. Right? We've all done it, right? We've all been to a hospital where we're having some kind of a test, or, even it's just your breast scan, annual breast scan, and you go into the toilets and sometimes they're so depressing. And she talked about the fact that those spaces need to be thoughtfully designed. They need to provide the patient with dignity and help them feel safe and secure as they're going through this vulnerable process. And I love that we really were able to turn the conversation to what does that mean for those of us who do residential design and commercial design? How can we improve the patient experience, or the client experience in this case? And toward the end of the show, Sara gave a quote, and she attributed it to Socrates, but I couldn't find that just to confirm it. What I did find was something similar, which is this: prescription without diagnosis is malpractice, by someone named James Muir. And I guess the idea is this, or my interpretation of the idea is that I don't want to come in and provide some solution to the client if it doesn't actually solve the need the client has. In other words, like, here's your new kitchen, without any thought to the pain points and how they use the space and who's short and who's tall, and do the kids pack their own lunch, et cetera, et cetera. It just really reminded me of the importance of getting to know how my clients move through a space, what they love about where they currently live, perhaps, where are the pain points, how can we improve those pain point areas and make sure we're supporting all members of the family. So it was really good, a thought-provoking conversation. And I said to Sara at the end that I have a consultation tomorrow. So I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to be asking better questions tomorrow. And that's what I love about this podcast. One of the things I love, that I take away so much good information. I learned so much. Another place you can learn so much is Business of Design. And I mentioned this a week or so ago. We are going to be changing how we deliver the experience of working with Business of Design. It's a really good time if you want to get in on rock bottom prices for all the value we provide. By far, the biggest value for the least amount of money, no question about it. It'd be a really good time to jump in if you're ready. And if not, really excited in the new year to introduce some new offerings that we have been able to create after diagnosing what our Business of Design members need. There you go. All roads lead back to this episode 405. It's all about the toilets. And before we hear about the toilets, we are going to hear from Cheryl Horn and find out what's happening at Business of Design. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Kimberly. Well, it definitely is a great time to join as we look ahead to 2025, because this year is almost over. So hopefully you're not just thinking about next year. Now you've been thinking about it for a while, setting goals, identifying what it is you want to change in your business, improve in your business, where you see yourself at the end of 2025 and your plan to get there. We really hope the Business of Design is part of that plan, so we would love for you to join. You cannot implement the Business of Design systems through the podcast alone. You get little tidbits here and there, and the goal of the podcast is to share with you expertise that we learn from others, but it doesn't necessarily share specifically how Kimberley is running her projects and her business. That is exclusive to our membership. And those are the two streams that you will learn. Business of Design's 15-step project management strategy is exactly how to run your projects from start to finish. It is a single program, but it is 20 hours of learning, and that 20 hours doesn't include, the downloads, the worksheets, everything that is customizable for your business. There is no guesswork. The systems are handed to you, and the forms and templates you need to implement are included as well. So each step within the BOD 15 is its own course, and there are 79 modules in total. So it really is broken down into small incremental steps, and we want you to take your time as you go through that to implement. Also, within membership, you are going to gain access to Business of Design's complete business model, which are 6 programs that teach you how to run your business. Running your business and running your projects are 2 different things, or require 2 different sets of systems. So those 6 programs are broken down into 20 different courses, and that's an additional 15 hours of learning. So yes, you can power through the content in a few months, but if you don't implement, you're not going to see results. And I really encourage you, head to businessofdesign.com, homepage, membership page, scroll down and click on testimonials. In the footer, we have hundreds of testimonials from members around the world sharing their success, doubling, tripling their income, the results, adding tens of thousands of dollars to their bottom line by implementing how we do consultations or how we do procurement. Small incremental changes can dramatically change your bottom line. So don't rush through it. We have always had the goal to reach as many designers as possible. So that has left me answering the question, what's included? Because the price has never reflected the value. So again, I really encourage you, check out the testimonials. We want those stories to be your story, and we are here for you in 2025. Gain access to the programs. Join us monthly for coaching. Reach out to me for support. Let's change your business. Let's grow your business. Let's transform your bottom line in 2025. Thanks so much.
Good morning, Sara. How are you?
Doing well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Well, I was really looking forward to this conversation, of course, to hear your personal story, because, for most of us, we do interior design. Life's pretty good. There's not a lot of reason to go much, much deeper than that. But of course, your story is going to be a little bit different. First of all, tell everybody you're in the healthcare sector, in the design healthcare sector, and you've been doing that for how long? And tell us what you do.
So I am a board certified healthcare architect. So that means my degree is specifically in healthcare architecture. And then I did some extra layers of exams and certification process through the American College of Healthcare Architects. So I've been practicing healthcare architecture for over 20 years. And so we focus on the design of healthcare facilities from basic medical office, just your general doctor's office, all the way to the most detailed parts of hospitals.
And I imagine that every step along that way, from the entry level of a doctor's office to moving through a system when you get a diagnosis you didn't ask for, the stakes get higher and higher, don't they? And
they do.
Yeah, I've been into some doctor's offices that I think, oh my goodness, I hope I never need to spend a lot of time here. They're tragic, but I have, thank goodness, not been through a hospital system, but you have. Tell us about your story, if you will, Sara.
I will. So, ironically, I was in the process of designing a breast health center, which was an outpatient facility where patients will go to get your annual screening mammograms, or if they detect something, a diagnostic mammogram, just to check out and see what's going on. And I was diagnosed with my own case of breast cancer. It was surprising, no family history. It actually started with a pain in my neck, and I went to my another client who's an orthopedist, and we found a bone tumor. So immediately the radiologist thought, let's check it out for breast cancer and see if it's metastasis. And so fast forward, it was.
Right.
So it was very shocking and very surprising. But it was also interesting because I very quickly went from somebody who has designed these facilities using anecdotal evidence, stories from our providers and what they're wanting in their building, what research tells us we need to do, to
Arm's
all of a sudden
length.
having firsthand, arm's length, to having
Yeah.
this firsthand experience. And it both reaffirmed and drastically changed my approach to design all at the same time, if that possibly makes any sense.
I think it must make sense. And you must have felt like you'd fallen down a rabbit hole. Like, what's happening? I'm supposed to be designing this, not becoming a patient. How did I end up here?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, we talked before we began recording, and I said the majority of our listeners are going to be residential designers and commercial designers and some architects. And as much as possible, we want to relate what you've learned to our own work as well. And I think part of what you've learned is that there is no such thing as a mundane space, right? And there's no such thing as a space that's unimportant. So, talk to us a little bit about how design is so much more than just the aesthetics.
Absolutely. So we have a saying that we float around our office saying it's all about the toilets. And the idea behind that is that the toilet might be one of the most mundane spaces in
Yeah.
a facility, in a home. Maybe not your master bath because that can be pretty glorious, but in a home or in a commercial space, it's the bathroom can be very mundane. But if you don't even get those basic details right, and if you don't
Yeah.
even think about bathroom is about dignity. It's about independence. It's about being able to take care of yourself. And if you can't even get that level of detail right, then every little thing you do is going to have an impact on someone physically, psychologically, emotionally. You can't separate. You can't separate those things.
Right. So at the granular level, you're thinking about the smallest but space, which is toilet. I never thought about that it needs to be a space that's dignified. I mean, we all have probably had experiences of going to the hospital, getting your mammogram and having to use the bathroom and thinking like, wow, it's just kind of an empty, stark, tragic spot and wondering why it can't be more beautiful. What are some of the things that you have to think about as you're designing those spaces?
Well, and I think you can translate it to other areas outside of healthcare because I think probably every segment has that one little space that's, just you put it by the wayside. But I think the main thing is really understanding how space affects people emotionally and physically. And for example, it's a psychological thing. And you hit on it earlier that you've been to medical office buildings that when you get inside them, you're like, oh, I hope I never have to come back here. And
Right.
probably part of that subconscious was, I don't feel like I will receive quality care here. People equate their physical surroundings with the quality of care they're going to receive. And if you
Right.
think about that on a broader lens with your commercial designers and your residential designers, people are going to equate their quality of work life or their quality of home life and the people they interact there, they're going to equate that to what that physical surrounding looks like. It's subconscious and it's on that just deep level they don't even recognize, but it really hits them in their heart and changes how they feel about how they are and how they live when they're in that space.
It resonates for me. I never thought about it that way, but I have definitely been in a waiting room and I thought this person has given up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
they don't care.
they give up.
They mildly depressed maybe, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure
absolutely,
I'm gonna right. I'm not sure
absolutely.
I'm gonna get the best healthcare here. I never thought about how and it's instantaneous, as you say. And so can those spaces, you said, we all have those small throwaway spaces. You might be a mud room, it might be a powder room, it might be the hallways. Can those a
Exactly.
lack of care in those spaces translate to a feeling of hopelessness and imbalance in the whole house? Like, how much energy do those
Yeah.
empty spaces take if we don't attend to them? Hey, did you know that 50% of interior design professionals aren't procuring at all for their clients? The reason? It's just too hard. But not with Daniel House Club. They make it easy. DHC simplifies your design business, offering everything you need in one place. No more wasting time managing orders. They've got it covered so you can concentrate on creating beautiful spaces. Plus, they offer some of the best trade pricing on top brands like Theodore Alexander, Jaipur Living, and Rove Concepts with flat rate shipping. To join, visit danielhouse.club and use the promo code BOD2024, all caps, for 50% off your first year of their Pro Plus membership. And for you longtime members of DHC, they want to reward you for your loyalty. Use the code PROFIT2024, all caps, at checkout to receive 10% off the value of your next order. Joining Daniel House Club is like Instacart for your interior design business. Experience how easy managing procurement for your clients can be.
I think it's worth looking at the bigger picture and how all the pieces come together as a whole. It's important not to neglect those small spaces, but also to think about them in the context of the whole picture you're telling. So, for example, the breast center that I was working on at the time that I got my diagnosis, we had come up with kind of this equation, and we called it motion plus emotion equals patient experience. And what that means is we recognize that when you go to a healthcare facility, you're going to be stressed. Maybe you already know something's wrong. Maybe you're afraid you're going to find something wrong. Whatever it is, there are outside stressors. So what we did was we mapped how the patient was going to move through the space. And then we looked at research to say, how are they going to be feeling at these critical milestones as they move through the space? And then we looked at more research to say, how can we employ design interventions at those critical milestones to really get the bang for the buck and really make a big difference in that patient's experience, and therefore give them a better outcome. So the motion plus the emotion equals the patient experience. And I think you could equate that to business, to home. It's a really widely applicable concept.
Well, yeah. What are some of the things you did to enhance those milestone moments? Like, what specifically did the designers decide to do in those cases?
Yeah, absolutely. So a great example, I think, is the diagnostic pathway. So the first thing that we did is, with respect to the breast center, when you're coming in, you're going to have 2 to 3 different patient populations. You're going to have the patients that are coming just for their screening. So probably a quick in and out, everything's probably fine. The second group are your diagnostic patients where something is amiss and we don't know what it is yet, but we're going to find out. And the third population is men, because men do also get diagnosed with breast cancer and they have to have, diagnosis done. So 3 distinct populations. So the first thing we did was separate the populations so that they were on their own individual tracks. So let's take the diagnostic patient, for example. We know that they're going to be waiting longer. We know they're going to be in the facility longer. They're going to be undressing. They're going to be thinking about what's going on with their body. And I'm speaking from experience, is my body betraying me? What is happening here? Like, I don't even want to look at myself in the mirror right now, because what if I see something that is wrong? So we created a healing garden outside the building, and that became the center of the design of all of our diagnostic spaces. So the diagnostic waiting, both the kind of family waiting and then the patient waiting, were all centered around this garden. And it was modeled after a Charleston, South Carolina pocket garden, where it was enclosed with walls so that it was like a little postage stamp of just a really precious space. The public weren't in it. People weren't walking around. It was very private and just for those people.
Wow.
And so then as you move into the dressing area, we gave them private dressing rooms. We modeled it after a spa locker room. We did not put mirrors in the dressing rooms themselves because we wanted a patient to be able to choose whether they wanted to look at themselves. Because the psychology says, I don't want to look at myself. So we fitted out the dressing space and made it nice, but we didn't force mirrors on people. Then as you move from there into the waiting, that's when it gets really hard. You're in a gown, you're vulnerable, you're waiting. We created different levels of privacy. So we had little secluded spots with comfy chairs where the patient could wait totally removed from everyone else. We had ones out in the middle because some folks deal by talking and sharing experiences and they want to be interacting. So we had a spot in the middle for those extroverts to get out there and share their stories. And then we had an in between for kind of the flies on the wall who wanted to be near the action but didn't want to participate. So we thought about the psychology of what it means to wait and tried to cater to all three of those different kind of personality types.
Wow, I never really thought about who did the design in these experiences and these spaces, but of course there is some fabulous designer behind the scenes working. So if I think about this in terms of my own work in residential, I might be thinking about the experience that the 10-year-old is going to have in the kitchen is very different than the experience that dad's going to have in the kitchen, which is different than the experience mom's going to have in the kitchen, maybe. So I can give some separate thought to those individuals and make sure everybody's attended to. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say, and I think it's also fair to think about the aging population and being able to age in place. So when you think about what I'm going to need in my house at 20 or 25 and with a young family is very different than what I'm going to need when I'm 65 or 70 and I start to lose my mobility and reaching things gets harder. Or heaven forbid, there's a catastrophic accident or you get a medical diagnosis. And then, so I think thinking about it from life cycle as well, absolutely, it's very applicable. I'm glad you pointed that out. Very much so.
How much impact do you think the thoughtfulness has on the experience? Did you have the experience of going to a place that wasn't thoughtfully designed and then a place that was, and how that felt personally?
I did and I didn't. I had the experience of that from a designer, from doing site visits to other facilities and looking at how we can improve things. Fortunately for me, the places I visited were mostly okay, although I will say, and I love my providers. I'm very, very grateful and have great providers. But when I was getting my diagnosis, we were already suspected something was going on. I was going for my diagnostic mammogram. They put me in a private changing room, which was great, loved that. But they had a TV in the space and it was airing a vehicle, one of those like reality TV repo shows, which on one hand was very distracting. So it served that purpose, it did that job, but it was not exactly calming, I will say. But yes, I have had the ability to go through and see spaces that weren't thoughtfully designed or had just aged, and just evolved versus ones that were well designed. And it does make a difference because one of the things we look at is this idea of, and one thing that I learned the most out of all this was empowering the patient. And what I learned is I'm going to be my own biggest advocate. And while my providers are fabulous, I'm one of many that they have to work with. So I need to feel empowered to ask questions and to trust my providers. And if I can do that, I'm more likely to follow through with my treatments and have better outcomes. So we think about, just like with that breast center, how do we reduce stress? We can't reduce all of it, but we can at least not have the building inflict stress and support things because negative emotions are contagious. And so what we see happening is patients come in stressed, they're anxious, their negative emotions then translate to the doctors and the providers subconsciously, and then they carry it off onto their next patients and onto their providers and their team members, and it just kind of starts this cycle. So we were trying to think of it through the lens of let's hit that stress, let's support the patient all the way through, empower them to feel comfortable, ask questions, but also let's reduce negativity and try to make everybody as kind of happy and as stress-free as we can in an otherwise stressful environment.
Can you think of ways that this translates into a residential space, a residential home? I'm thinking of like a kitchen. You don't want to put important things up on a super high shelf. Right. Your client is short and you're causing them every time to need to get a ladder but what are some other things we can think about that might empower our own clients at home and help them find peaceful refuge in their home.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that. That's my daily life. I have my step ladder to get to my top shelf in my kitchen frequently, and it drives me crazy. I think it begins with understanding your client and understanding really who they are, how they live, how they work, because more often now we're seeing folks working from home. So, what are the processes they go through in their daily life? So, for example, in the breast center, we mapped out the processes of what different patient groups are doing as they moved through all the different parts of the building. You could kind of similarly talk through that with your residential client. Let's talk about when you get up in the morning, how do you like to start your day? What is your process? Do you go straight to the kitchen to get your coffee? Do you go straight to the bathroom? Do you go, drink your water? Do you go straight to your treadmill? Do you go straight to your desk and answer emails? Kind of think through what are the various points in the day? What is the process? How do they flow through the house? And then start to talk about what are the major things you need to happen in each of those moments. Tell me your ideal feeling at each of these stages. And then you can start to look for design interventions and intentions that respond specifically to those moments in time and how they want to feel. I've rolled out of bed. I want to go straight to that coffee and have the best cup of coffee I've ever had to wake me up. So how do they feel? And then what can we do as designers to give them that experience every morning?
Yeah, where would you sit when you're having the best cup of coffee you've ever had? Because sometimes you design an island with a stool and they're like, I don't really like sitting in a stool. Okay, now we have a problem. I love that. So often I do this podcast and I think I'm failing. I just haven't even thought to ask these questions, but they're so good. Like even if you roll out of bed and go to the treadmill, how do you feel? I usually feel like, oh, I don't want to be here.
Yeah,
But once I get started, I'm great. I wonder what would make me feel more excited to show up to my treadmill.
Exactly. I mean, even for me, like personally, like where is my closet? Where's my drawer with my workout clothes or where do I lay out my workout clothes so that I see them and I put them on so that I'll go on straight to the treadmill. And it's kind of how do you trick yourself psychologically? Because some of these things are things we have to do and we don't want to do.
Right.
So how do I trick myself psychologically to be like, all right, I'm going to get on that treadmill. So I've got to have my shoes and I've got to have my clothes laid out, but where's that spot to lay them out? And without everything looking cluttered and getting messy. And so here's how we do it. There is a process called lean design. And lean was adapted from the Toyota, like the cars. They go through this process of they design a car, then they evaluate it for all the things that could be improved. And then they start over and then they design the new one. And then they look for all the things that can be improved. And so it's called continuous improvement. But it's all about the process of how they build the car, how they put the pieces together, what each piece looks like, how it fits, what's the order. We've widely adopted that in healthcare to help inform how we do our processes in healthcare, because healthcare is a lot of process, but it's widely applicable to anything. It could be, like we said, in your house. What are the different processes you go through? Map it out. Let's talk step by step. Let's talk about your morning routine. Let's talk step by step about what it is. And then let's see where it's going wrong. What is not working in your morning routine? Let's identify that and let's cross that out and let's make that better.
Right.
And then we have a new process and we visit that. Okay, now let's look at this new one. Let's make sure we like this process and flow. And then let's design based on that. It could be, you can't find the kids' lunchbox in the morning because it's never in the same spot or there's not enough cabinet space, or you want the kids to be able to pack their own lunch. So you need the right type of drawers or cabinets for them to get their supplies, or where their rooms are located, or how the closet system works. Any process is applicable.
Wow.
And at one point,
I love this.
Yeah, that question about feeling like you haven't asked the questions. That's what I think is just amazing because there's so much information. We're supposed to be the experts in our field, but I had a consultant tell me the other day that they feel less of an expert now than they did 20 years ago because there's so much new information and all that out there. And I think that's okay. And that's why we have partners and we reach outside to form relationships with others who can help fill our gaps. So I think that's okay. I think it's okay you're not failing. You're doing great.
I love this idea of the lean design experience, though. And I think on some levels, you sort of do it automatically, but to be more intentional about it, I actually have a consultation tomorrow and I am going to have them walk me through their home routines
Yes,
just to see what that feels like. Because what a pity if there is some pain point that we could solve and we don't talk about it
exactly.
and recreate the same pain point in the new space. That would be terrible.
Exactly.
Oh my God, so
A lot of
interesting.
times they don't even know a lot of the times. They just know it's just not working, but they don't know why. So
Right.
by making them spell it out and look at the steps, you can be like, okay, well, tell me which of these steps you feel stressed in, and let's talk about what is it you can't find a thing, or it's too far, or there's no daylight in your office, you feel like it's a dungeon, it's a trap, you don't want to go in there. Let's talk about why you feel badly about those things, and then it's eye-opening. It's liberating as a designer.
It
It's
really is.
that aha moment. Yeah.
I like those aha moments. And can I ask you about your health? Are you healthy now? Are
Yep.
you doing well?
I am. So because mine is technically metastatic, it's technically stage 4. So it will never be cured. But right now I'm in remission. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll stay in remission for a very long time. Um, but it's, again, it's taking it and using each of my experiences to kind of inform designs and think about it in a new way. I get a lot of imaging now, a lot of MRIs, a lot of CTs just to check progress. And I was walking a space yesterday looking at an MRI suite, and I was just like, nope, I know better now, because let me tell you what it's like to be on that table and listening to the noises and
Yeah.
sitting there for 45 minutes
You
and what could.
must, yeah, you must feel like you have so much work to do. I can't be unhealthy because I have too many places and I need to help.
Exactly, exactly. I heard there's a phrase that I had seen before, and I believe it was Socrates that said that treatment without diagnosis is malpractice.
Hmm.
And I heard that before, but I never really equated it to design. But if you think about it as designers, if we just come to our client with a treatment, a design solution, without diagnosing what it is that they really need, we're kind of committing our own form of malpractice. Just like I don't want my doctor just to roll in and, be like, here, just take this thing and just take this drug and, off you
Yeah.
go. I want to know that it's being specifically tailored to me and that he knows me and understands my specific thing. Just like I need to be doing that with my clients. I need to be diagnosing what they need and then treating it.
That is so powerful. I love that. I'm going to take that with me. Thank you so much for that.
Do it. Yes, you're welcome.
Sarah, we like to end every episode with something we call design intervention, which is just a great piece of advice you want to give the listeners.
Yes. I had to think about this because I've been given a lot of great advice. I've been very fortunate in my career. But I think the piece that stands out the most to me is that authenticity will never fail you. Just like you mentioned earlier, you feel like maybe you're not doing a good job because you don't know all the things. It's okay to not know all the things. And I think it's okay for us to tell that to our clients. So I feel like with my clients, it's okay to be vulnerable and say we're going to work through this together, we're going to find a solution, because that when you're vulnerable, when you're open, when you're honest with your clients, you form more genuine connections. They
Hmm.
know that they can trust you, and then you can really get to know them and what it is that they need, and then give them a better design response. And even if it's commercial and even if it's a business relationship, it's still so important for them to trust you, so that then not only do you get a great design response, then you have a trusted client relationship that could be repeat business,
Hmm.
that can come back, and you can both sustain each other for a very long time. So when in doubt, authenticity never fails.
Oh, really, really well said. Thank you so, so much for this. It was wonderful to meet you this way. Continued good health, and I hope you can get your hands on as many medical facilities as possible to make the patient experience better for everybody. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
All right, stay well.